Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell the truth about silver. Today is Sunday, the 18th of October 2020, and a slightly different schedule today than originally planned. Rather than posting episode 3 of our Peak Gold series, we're going to publish a discussion with controversially Greg about how he sees COVID-19, Brexit, and the US elections will affect gold and silver prices over the next few months. So let's take a look. Yesterday we published our gold and silver weekly update for the weekend in the 16th of October. And in case you haven't had an opportunity to listen to it, we've pasted a link to it in the description box below. We shall now listen to a conversation that I had with Greg earlier this evening, but as it has run a little longer than planned, we've split the conversation into two parts, with part 2 being published tomorrow. But we haven't forgotten episode 3 of Peak Gold, and that will either also be published tomorrow or on Tuesday. So let's go to the discussion with controversially Greg. Well, this evening we have controversially Greg, and we're going to cover with him a few issues really that are likely to affect gold and silver prices moving forward, certainly over the next few months. So that will mean, essentially, for those who've listened to our update published yesterday, that will mean the coronavirus pandemic. It will mean the forthcoming election, and also other geopolitical events that are occurring around the world. So let's say good evening to Greg. Greg, good evening.
Good evening.
So Greg, let's kick off with coronavirus, because obviously this is the prime subject on every news media throughout the world at the moment. Where are we at? Because the last figure I looked at, I think worldwide there was something like 40 million cases and over 1 million deaths.
Well, in absolute, we're talking at the latest update 5 minutes ago, 40,153,771 cases have been recorded. However, that probably bears very little reality when you are looking at how many have actually occurred, because there are large sectors of the world where nobody is recording with any degree of accuracy. And there are other sectors in the world where governments are lying through their teeth, either to get aid or because it suits them to have a low figure. 1,116,980 people have supposedly died of COVID-19. However, here again, the figures are very suspect, because some countries, particularly wealthy countries, are doing far more testing, far more tracking, and far more accurate figures, yet the accuracy of the figures may not be in the same terms as their neighboring countries. America is currently being castigated all over the place for basically the highest rate, or almost the highest rate of death in the world, when realistically it's far more accurate to talk of it as around about the 10th highest. And on that same scale, bearing in mind both countries record their figures differently, the UK is 12th highest. Sweden is 15th highest. And in fact, the highest rate of death in the world is San Marino, where they have tested 8,321 people, but they have 1,237 deaths per million of population, which is very easy to achieve since they have a population of only 33,952. That is their quoted population. Whether that's before they all started dying or not, I'm not sure. Peru is also very high, There they have 33 million people, but 1,018 deaths per million, whereas America's figure is recorded as 331,579,000 population and 677 deaths per million. That is just about half as many per million as San Marino. Look at the deaths per million.
Let's move on to how you envisage, because obviously I understand that the death trend is now rising again, which is causing a number of countries to go into either partial or complete lockdown, or at least threatening it. And we're encountering that here in the United Kingdom. So what's happening? What's happening over the next few months?
As to where it's going, I think we need to take the example from the last major pandemic we had, which was Spanish flu, which started in 1917 and petered out in 1919. It was fairly unremarkable to start with in 1917, but what seems to be being called the second wave this time was somewhere in the region of 5 or 6 times as large and grew from there in 1918. I have a horrible feeling that is exactly what's going to happen with COVID-19. And I think we can reasonably be looking at 5 to 8 times as many deaths as we currently have before we possibly see it coming under any element of control.
But we are hearing that certain companies have been announcing that they're well on the way to a vaccine, or at least tests that they've carried out are proving quite positive. Surely, if you listen to President Trump or even some of his doctors, they're suggesting a vaccine could be available well before the end of the year.
If they had one right now, they couldn't make the vaccine serum available in adequate quantities until this time next year. We're looking at needing a minimum dosage, not only manufactured, but administered, of somewhere in the region of 4 billion doses. This is not going to happen rapidly. And as to whether we have a vaccine likely, may I bring it to your attention that COVID is merely a coronavirus, and the coronavirus is a mutating flu-type virus, and it's different at least every year. We have no vaccine for the flu. We have been looking for a vaccine for the common cold for almost 70 years. So okay. Don't hold your breath.
Okay, so on the back of that then, obviously a large number of countries are closing down, as I mentioned earlier. Now, it does appear, and I use this word broadly, it does appear that the Trump White House is perhaps adopting more of an approach of what they conceive as being herd immunity, but their derivation of that, or derivative rather of that, is just let everyone go out and catch it. And if you survive, great. If you don't, well, tough, but protect the aged, if you like, keep them relatively safe. Now, that's one way of dealing with it. I'm not suggesting for one moment it's the best way, but it's certainly one way of dealing with it. Otherwise, you're going to have permanent lockdowns, and the economy is already now starting to show signs of depleting yet again. Can we really afford another economic attack which we've encountered over the past few months?
Oh, I think mismanagement to date is leading to the inevitability of further economic damage. And I think also, when you talk in terms of America not having lockdowns and heading for let the disease rip, that's all very well. It might work, might work in Britain and some European countries that have a national health service. However, it will end up being in America, if they're not damn careful, a national wealth service. And this will be a disease that will wipe out large tracts of those who cannot afford the medicine and those who cannot survive the economic downturn for lack of a good benefit structure. So they need to be very careful, and so do all of us. What we do have to realize, of course, I was talking to somebody today who has an executive position in an IT company with some 600 direct employees writing software and solving people's computer problems on a number of platforms. They've got around 600 people in one office. When I say one office, one building. And the vast majority of them have been working from home. On his division of the company, all of them work from home, and only one person goes in per day on a rota basis to make sure that somebody doesn't unplug the wires in the office and the whole thing go jabberwocky. And it's becoming fairly obvious to them, even to the people who were total Luddites on the concept until COVID came along, that they have no need of an office that houses 600 people. They can readily cut that back to under 100 people, 1/6 the size of office, and the rest all work from home. And until they'd actually tried it, the belief was that people working from home were skiving. No, actually, they're finding that people working from home would seem to have a better work output. Though there are drawbacks, the water cooler concept of cross-feeding ideas, they need to find a new method. One suggestion being mooted is that every employee tunes in for 5 minutes at a given time every hour during their working day. And when I say tune in, they're tuning in to the in-house chat and news channel. Work is going to change. It's going to change for probably over the next 5 to 10 years, the entire population of the Western world. And don't forget, we will be having 5G increasingly delivered. And the question is, once we have 5G, do we have a need for intercity airlines? Do we have a need for commuter rail trains? Do we have a need in Britain for rail trains at all? If you don't have people going to these farcical conurbations and spending hours a day getting to and from work when they can work from home. Things are going to change.
Well, talking about change, Greg, November the 3rd, just over 2 weeks away, we have the general or presidential election in the United States. We are seeing, obviously, on the mainstream media that Joe Biden is some roughly 10 points ahead of President Trump. And even in those states which really determine the outcome of the election, the polls are now beginning to suggest that Biden is ahead in all of them, or if not ahead, equal in some. President Trump, I think, the last report I saw, was not ahead in any of them. So how do you see the election panning out, and do you think the polls are accurate, bearing in mind how wrong they were last time? Well, we have to end it there before Greg is able to answer, as we do not wish this video to run on for too long. So tomorrow we shall publish part 2, where we shall hear what Greg has to say to that question concerning the US general election. We will also cover Brexit and their overall potential impact on gold and silver prices. So please Any comments you wish to share, place below. And meanwhile, thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. Not forgetting to press the bell sign so that you're notified of our videos as and when they're published. And we shall also be publishing tomorrow on the Richard and Greg channel, again, episode 3 of our Empires and Dynasties series. So please do not forget to go over to that channel and likewise, hopefully, subscribe and press the bell sign there too. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.